Good afternoon. This is a meeting of the Beech Grove Board of Zoning Appeals. Date is, what is today's date? The date is August 4th, 2021. We have one case on the docket today, case number 2021-DVB-002. We'll start off with an introduction of board members, starting on my far right.
Marcia Dorsey.
David Garrett.
James Kaufman.
Jeff Yeager.
And here to my left is
Beth Copeland.
she's serving as the attorney for the Board of Zoning Appeals. The board has minutes presented from our last meeting, which was April 7th, 2021. If you guys have any questions or concerns, if everything looks good, then we need a motion to approve those minutes.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Thank
I
you.
second the motion.
Thanks, Marcia. Are those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. We will continue with rules of procedure. The proceedings of this hearing are governed by the board's rules of procedure. Petitioners and persons appearing in support of the case being heard shall have a maximum of 15 minutes for the presentation of evidence, statements, and arguments in support of the petition. Any person who desires to speak and provide testimony during today's hearing must first complete the sign-in slip located on the table in the back of the room. This slip must be presented to the board president before you provide your testimony. Remonstrators and persons appearing in opposition to the petition shall have a maximum of 15 minutes for the presentation of evidence, statements, and arguments in opposition to the petition. Staff will then present the administrator's comments regarding the petition. The petitioner will then be allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal and a summation of the case. Rebuttal must be limited to the subject matter of the initial presentations. Remonstrators will be allowed 5 minutes for the rebuttal of the petitioner's rebuttal evidence and a brief closing statement. No further evidence, statements, or arguments will be heard unless it is at the discretion of the board. Please limit your testimony and evidence to the matters covered in the statutory requirements which must be met for the board to grant a variance. If the petitioners have failed to comply with all notice requirements as stipulated by the board's rules of procedure, including posting of the notice placed on the subject property at least 23 days prior to the hearing, the board may continue the petition. Anyone at this hearing who thinks complete and proper notices have not been given and would like the petition continued due to lack of proper notice must bring this matter to the board's attention at the beginning of the hearing. The board may impose various conditions as amendments before reaching a decision on certain petitions. The installation of landscaping and screenings, the paving of parking areas, and the dedication of right-of-way are examples of such conditions. These conditions are an integral part of the board's decision and must be met for a granted variance to be valid. Every decision of the Beech Grove Board of Zoning Appeals shall be subject to judicial review. Such petition for a judicial review shall be presented to the court within 30 days after the decision of the board. Please be courteous and orderly at all times, and please be sure all cell phone rings are turned off. Is there anyone in the audience who has any questions about our procedures? All right. We'll do a swearing in of all the witnesses. So if you plan to speak today, I need you to stand up, raise your right hand. Say, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Thank you. Again, today we are hearing petition case number 2021 DVB-002. Address is 1982 Alton Street. The request is a variance of development standards of the Consolidated Zoning and Subdivision Ordinance to legally establish a 6-foot tall fence in the front yard along Alton Street. Maximum 3.5-foot tall fence permitted in the front yard. So petitioners, if you want to come up, and we have Jacob Leshaft and Brandy Leshaft. You guys have 15 minutes.
Okay. And also, I have like pictures too to try to help explain. If I could like
Absolutely, yeah, you
come
can
up
pass
there
them
and
out.
show you all. Or
Absolutely, yes, sir.
So we moved up here a little over a year ago, and from Kentucky. And whenever we got up here, we didn't have a privacy fence. Well, we have 3 big breed dogs. We have a Doberman, a Rottweiler, and a Pit Bull. In these pictures, just got one of my Doberman.
Got some more than that. I've already seen what you need.
So the 3.5 to 6.
If you want to walk over there, because like I said, I don't vote on it, so
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
these 3 people are the one who
So
vote on
your
it.
3.5 foot is right there at the top of the middle bar, which would be that bar right there.
Okay.
So that's an idea. Like my dog could easily just almost walk over it, more or less. And,
Or a small child could put their hand over the
or,
fence.
or a small child could put their hand over a fence, and I just wouldn't want to risk that. And also, staying on the dog side of it, I don't know if any of y'all are on the Beech Grove Facebook page, but it seems like every day, or at least every other day, there's a loose pit bull, loose dog running around, and I can testify now that none of my dogs have ever gotten out, and they don't plan on it.
Because of our
Because
privacy
of our
fence.
privacy fence. They have somewhere where they can go run, and they're not gonna get out of it, they're not gonna jump the fence. They're safe and secure in their yard. And other than that, we was thinking about putting a pool back there, but now that kind of put a halt to things because of obvious reasons we're here. And then and I couldn't really, when we started getting all these letters, the inspector, so actually I'll restart. So when we built the fence, I called up to the city hall to get permission to make sure I didn't need a permit or nothing. They said I didn't need a permit, so I just went on and I built it. And I didn't think to ask
The corner
if
lot.
I had a backyard or not. I just kind of assumed. I guess that was my fault for assuming. So then I just built it according to the guy. So here's Alton Street and Briar Street. Well, there's another street right here who's also on a corner lot, so pretty much right across the street from me. On that corner lot, I built my fence identical to theirs. And I asked the inspector about it, and he said, well, their fence was built prior to 2006.
It was grandfathered because it
and
was
it was
built in
grandfathered in.
2016.
So I stopped my fence halfway. Let me show you. So their fence was also stopped halfway into the side of the house. So like from the front view, that's what we're looking like. And I stopped halfway, and that's just how the other guys was. And again, it's my fault for assuming, but I just assumed to copy that guy. So I came halfway, and I was thinking this was my front yard. You know, the front of my house. I wasn't assuming that my side or what I would think is my backyard was my front yard. And then I also have pictures of if it could have been like in a blind spot maybe at
To the drivers.
to
on
the
the
drivers from the stop sign. And there's two views from the stop sign, and one almost getting towards in the intersection, and you still can't see the fence, so it's not
It's not blocking the way of any drivers. It's not causing any potential safety hazards to drivers.
I can see the fence is way back in here.
More than anything, it creates privacy for us and our dogs and the safety of our community, you know, of not having, you know, dogs, which our dogs are very friendly, but, you know, no
Still not
community,
worth the
yeah,
risk.
no community wants to have large dogs running the street, causing any issues, scaring people, and like we said,
And then if other people have aggressive dogs who they're walking,
yeah, of course.
and then it's just not, you know.
And then you
I'd
don't,
rather not have my dog
Yeah.
on the street.
and then
getting
you
hit by
don't
a
want
car.
anyone who's walking by to, you know, see a short fence and see, you know, dogs there and want to stick their hand over or just create any issues that has to do with that. And then, of course, as long as everything went okay with this, we wanted to put a pool in our backyard. And so with that being said, that's also a good reason to have a privacy fence, because you don't want any small children or just, you know, children are curious. And if they see a pool that they can easily access by, you know, they can see it because there's not a tall enough fence there guarding your pool, we don't want any problems with that. So it really is just a safety issue. It's a privacy thing. I'm sure you guys can understand kind of, you got the gist.
Yeah, I mean, that's, for the most part, that's pretty much it. It's really just for the,
Safety and
we
privacy.
we got big dogs, and then it's just, if we had littler dogs, I would have probably just cut it down and
Been along
agreed,
our way,
but
yeah.
But
But
this
yeah.
is kind of, if I have to cut it down, I almost have to move out, so it's kind of like, because I bought a house to not have to walk my dogs on a leash.
Constantly when we don't have to.
Yeah, so that's why we are here, trying to fight against it in the most respectable way possible.
Any questions?
Nope. I've been by their house. I've looked at it.
I guess my question was answered because I wondered why you didn't go to someone and ask what the variances were and, you know, and,
Just, that was just, again, that was just me assuming. That was, I guess, bad judgment. I'll take 100%.
Yeah,
blame
not
for
really,
that.
not realizing that a corner lot wouldn't be considered having a backyard. We didn't even think of that. So, you know, whenever we called to ask about the permit, we didn't say, hey, we're on a corner lot. What's, you know, how tall can your, like, we did not think about that.
We moved from like where,
yeah.
or where you could do whatever you want. We was the
Yeah.
only,
We previously
we
lived
was
on a
in the
corner
country.
lot.
Yeah, but it was,
It didn't matter.
so then we come here, the only thing I had thought to ask was the permit, because I didn't want to get in trouble for not pulling a permit. And as soon as they said no, I went and bought the lumber that day.
hey, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Case.
Thank you.
Are there any remonstrators? None seen. Staff?
Thank you. For your record, Linda Albrecht, representing Department of Metropolitan Development. Fence cases on corner lots are always a touchy subject in Marion County, but the reason for the regulation on corner lots is to keep an open appearance along street frontages. So when you're walking down a street and you need to be able to see what's around, the environment around you. You need to see if anything's coming. You need to see if there's a dog on the other side of the fence that can get to you. You need to see if there's a person on the other side of that fence that can get to you. So when you're walking down the street, you need to be able to see these things, and that's why the fence is required to be lower. The purpose of the requirement is also, if you look at the very first photograph that I supplied to you, the adjacent house to the east should be able to look out their front window and look down the street, and they cannot. They can only see the neighbor's 6-foot-tall fence if they look to the west. The regulation, what they were implying was cutting it down to 3.5 feet. The regulation doesn't require it to be that short. It just means that it can't be 6 feet tall at the sidewalk. They would have to move it back to a 25-foot distance, and then they could have 6 feet. They wouldn't be required to drop it. They could have it at a height to retain their dogs. I would note that this is a violation case, so somebody did call in and complain about it, and that's how it got to enforcement through you, or for you to hear today. We do recognize that it is, even though it is on a corner lot, the fence does not impact the clear sight triangle at the intersection of the two roads. But we would say that it impacts the intersection at the driveway of the house to the east along Alton. My final photograph that I've given you, you will see they have a very large evergreen tree. And we thought maybe as a compromise, we could request that it be moved back to at least to that tree. Maybe not the full 25 feet that's required, because the tree would impact visibility anyway, but that the fence wouldn't be right out on the sidewalk, impacting safety of people walking, pedestrians on the sidewalk. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
About how many feet from
About
the
6 feet.
sidewalk to the evergreen is there?
About 6 feet.
6 feet, okay, thank you.
So the issue of safety that you're alluding to is the fact that, let's say I was walking from the east to the west along that sidewalk on Alton, that I would need to see if there was somebody hiding behind the fence.
It's for criminal element as well as dangerous dogs, things like
Right.
that.
They could just as well be able to hide behind
I
there on the corner that,
understand.
okay, so. Well, I drove over here 2 different times. One, I drove in a minivan, which I could see out of because I sit up much higher, and I didn't see any issues with anything of what you were talking about with the visibility triangle. But then I came back and I drove my small car. It sits very low down to the ground. I still didn't see any issues with it. I didn't quite take into consideration the next door neighbor not being able to look westbound on Alton. But I can see where that is a bit of a hindrance, so. And that's all I have.
Any other questions for staff? Petitioner's rebuttal, you now have 5 minutes to rebut anything that was discussed.
So I guess we will start with people wanting to see the dogs or be able to see what's behind the fence. I actually have, here you can see from here. In the fence, we actually put little bubble windows, mainly so the dogs can see something else other than a wall. And when someone's walking by, they go straight to them windows every time. And actually, I'm gonna grab one more picture. So when you walk by, that's what you're gonna see. They're gonna come greet you through their little windows. You will definitely see if there is. So you can see the windows there, also there, and then when you walk by, that's what they do. If they're outside, they come to the window to greet you.
I'd also say you have to take into consideration too how, she mentioned, we'd only want to move it back a couple feet. Well, if it's not that big of a deal where it would only need to be moved back a couple feet, I think you should consider how much of an inconvenience it would be on us to tear down a fence, the cost to rebuild, and everything else over something that seems kind of minute.
And also,
regarding
again,
that.
we also have 3 large dogs. And as we all know, Beech Grove yards aren't that big to begin with. So if I have to, like now, I would honestly love for my dogs to have acres and acres to run on. So I'm just trying to give them every little bit that I can. And with the neighbor, before I even called the city, I talked to the guy.
We're friends with that neighbor, so.
Very special. He had mattresses sitting on the side of a shed. He moved them for me because I was going to come in right there. He was very respectful about it, and he had no problem with it. And I think if he did, we sent
We sent a letter.
letters to everybody in the community within 100, whatever it was.
Giving
like-
them the chance to come speak on their own behalf if they did have an issue with it. And as you can see, there's no one here today
Yes.
that is opposing that, including our neighbor who it would mostly affect, who she mentioned. So I don't really see that as an issue.
And again, I've ran it by him well before I even got permission from you all to build about the permit, before I called for the permit.
And then
He was
as
cool
as
with
you
it,
said,
and-
you've drove by and seen that it's not any type of risk for not being able to see around or any. And like you said, it's not like as far as wanting to see a criminal around the street. I mean, that's not. There's cars parked on the street. A criminal can hide behind. There's bushes in every yard. That's not an issue. I don't feel like that's an issue. So.
And I don't think a criminal's gonna hop a fence with a Doberman Rottweiler or a Pit Bull and play with them. So, I think that's all.
Yeah, that's really
got.
all we have to say about it. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
And again, there's no remonstrators seen today. So, board?
I think I have a question, possibly for the attorney. If this is approved, would that set a precedent? Anybody else that wanted to do the same?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear him.
I'm sorry, Marcia.
That's all right, sir.
If this is approved, would that have set a precedence for anybody else that wanted to do the same?
It can to some degree, but with all variance applications, you have to analyze them on a case-by-case basis. Just
That
given
would be
the-
my biggest fear is,
Just given the
I don't
circumstances.
want to walk down Main Street and see 6-foot fences in the front yard.
Right. Correct. You would have to be able to if you approved this, you would have to be able to articulate. If the petitioner stood up and said, but you allowed it here, you'd have to be able to say, but this is different because. And if you can say it's different because, then legally you would be fine. If you don't have a reason why, then that's when we get into the arbitrary and capricious decisions.
That's why I was asking you.
Yeah, that's when we get into arbitrary and capricious.
Okay.
Well, I'm an animal lover, and I appreciate the fact that you're doing for your animals. On the other hand, I feel like that the compromise that was offered, would possibly take care of any questions or problems like you just addressed. And I know it would be a little bit of work, but it would take care of 6 feet would not be that much as far as the dogs are concerned, but yet possibly if those neighbors would move and someone else would move in, maybe that would be a problem.
Yes.
And I think that's my only concern.
Nothing to say.
We need a motion to either approve,
Oh,
deny.
You could vote to approve as is. You could ask them if they're willing to change their request and vote on that. And it would be with the condition that it be moved 6 feet back.
Is there a time limit on it being moved?
You could put that on there. It would still be subject to code enforcement, so they would go to court if they don't do it quickly.
What do you consider quickly?
They'll probably give them about 3 to 4 months.
Okay.
Traditionally, what you see is reasonable amount of time.
I knew that was coming.
That's usually the legal language is that is
And in
reasonable.
terms, freezing, they'll give them more.
Right.
Right, if
Oh,
the ground
I
is
see.
frozen and they can't do it, but.
So if there would be a problem and they couldn't get it done, they could get an extension
Yes,
of time?
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
But you should probably leave it up to them what you want them to vote on, with the condition or not.
Okay.
Would you guys be open to us voting on either approve or deny, or with the condition of moving it 6 feet
I would
in?
honestly, probably, I would just end up selling the house and moving somewhere else respectfully. I guess, I can't have my dogs in, like, just, that's too less of room, honestly, for them. It's three big breed dogs. And even on top of that, lumber is extremely high right now, and I'm honestly just not made of money. I can't afford that right this second. Not in 3 months, 4 months. So I would just, I guess, I don't know, we figure something out.
So you prefer just to vote either approve or deny the
Yes, sir.
fence? Okay.
Well, I feel that they're trying to work with you, and I see the situation, but I see both sides, and you're not having to buy more lumber, you're just having to take the time to move it. So I feel like that would be a compromise, and that way there wouldn't be any problems later on down the way.
So somebody's need to make a motion to approve or deny the petition. As written.
oh,
Has to be.
then
It
I'd
has
like to
to
make a
be
motion to either approve or deny it.
Has,
You
Oh,
have
it
has
has
to be
to
one or
be
the other,
one.
it has to be
One.
unanimous. It has to be unanimous.
Then I guess I make a motion that we deny it then.
I second that motion.
Second, Marcia.
Yes, sir.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nay. Sorry,
Excuse me, nay.
You can't,
I can't do that?
no,
Okay.
if you're gonna vote against it, then you
Then I
need.
can't
Can't
make
make
the
you
motion
need-
for it.
Right,
My
so you should have
apologies.
made a motion to approve.
I know, okay.
Okay. I make the motion that we deny it due to the circumstances that we have mentioned.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
So it fails.
So it automatically gets redocketed for next month.
And next month, you should have a full board. So,
Yes.
so
Approved or denied.
so this is an interesting situation because you have
Yes.
only a 3-person board out of 5, which meant you had to have a unanimous vote. When you have 5 members here, you have to have 3 of the 5 to vote one way. So now you're redocketed.
So it gives you another month.
In other words, you have another month to stay status quo.
And I do feel your pain that you already built the fence.
I mean, no, it's very unfortunate, and it does require buying lumber, you can't just,
Yeah, you can't just pick it up
you
out of
can't
the
just
ground.
pull it out of the ground.
That's not how that works.
He'll have to purchase all new posts.
But, yeah, I mean, it is what it is, you know,
Okay.
it's rules.
So we'll reach out, so but see you again on, I think the next meeting is September 1st, 1 o'clock. Yes, sir.
So what, we'll just do the same thing and.
Yeah, and hopefully there'll be a full board here and you'll get a decision.
And then it could be voted again, yes or no.
Correct.
Correct.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much for coming.
All right, that is it. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion is adjourned at 1:28.
Yeah, my heart goes out to him that they built the fence, but is